We now have the pleasure of being joined by Mark Berman of the Roanoke Times, covers Virginia Tech. Mark, thanks so much for coming on today. We really appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
So let's hop right in here. You know, both of these teams sort of playing some of their best ball of the season right now. Virginia Tech on a 4-game win streak. What's gone right recently for the Hokies?
Well, their offense is really clicking. For the last 5 games, which starts with the loss to Miami that they lost to on a half-court heave at the buzzer. Otherwise, it would have been a 5-game winning streak. So for this 5-game stretch, including started with the Miami loss and these 4 straight wins, they've shot over 50% from the field, in at least 50% from the field in all 5 of these games, which is they've never done before since joining the ACC. So that shows you that this is a hot shooting team, and that's a big reason for the success of late.
In doing some prep for this, I noticed, Virginia Tech's 6-7 in the ACC. They got a 14-10 record overall. Not the most eye-popping numbers off the page, but then when you look into the advanced metrics, they're 33rd on KenPom. They're in the top 50 of the net. So are the Hokies overlooked based on where those numbers are?
Well, no, I mean, it's been a disappointing season for them. I mean, they were supposed to go back to the NCAA tournament this year like they did last year. They were picked 5th in the ACC preseason poll. They were getting a bunch of votes. They weren't ranked in the AP preseason top 25, but they were getting a bunch of votes there. But it's been a disappointing season for them. They in the non-conference, they went to New York for a tournament at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn Thanksgiving week, and they lost to Memphis and they lost to Xavier. And so, there were some opportunities there that they didn't get. And then they played Dayton at Dayton and lost that game. And then non-conference wise, they got a home win over Notre Dame, but that's pretty much their best win. They lost at home to Duke, and they lost at home to Wake Forest, which obviously has turned out to be a really good Wake Forest team, but they lost at home to Wake Forest. They lost at Duke. They had the home loss to Miami. Now they did win at Florida State, but of course Florida State's been declining of late. They lost to North Carolina, so there's not there's not a lot of meat on the bones there. I mean, the analytics are nice, but the quality wins aren't there for them this year.
You look at a guy like Keve Aluma, I guess you could sort of tee him up as the guy for the Hokies, but in comparison to last year, the numbers are pretty similar. What's sort of the takeaway from his season, with his performance? Was there an expectation that he was really going to take that next step and it just hasn't panned out? Or, is it sort of just that's what you're getting at face value when it comes to Aluma compared from last year to this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't so much that, that it was pinned on Aluma. It was just the thought that this is an experienced team that Aluma's back, Justin Mutz is back, that Hunter Couture is back, Naheem Aline is back, and they added Storm Murphy, a graduate transfer from Wofford. So just the thought was this was going to be a very old team, and that that was going to equate into a lot of wins, and that just has not been the case until lately. They had a lot of trouble closing out games, and they would have had more wins, but except there was a bunch of games in January that they just couldn't close them out. And now, of course, they've won 4 in a row, and the offense is clicking, and they're closing out these games.
So you mentioned a lot of the guys who are returning. Getting into the specifics of Saturday's game, Syracuse's defense has been unbearably bad to watch at times this season. So who do you think the Orange should have their eye on from the outside who can knock down shots and beat the zone?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they've all been making their threes lately. They've in this 5-game stretch here, they've made at least 13 3-pointers in for the last 5 games, and and they're shooting 53% from the field, shooting 53% from 3-point range during the stretch. So that shows you how good that they're doing 3-point wise. Of course, and that includes the win at Florida State when they made 18 threes, which was the most they've ever made in an ACC game, and that included 9 threes from Hunter Couture. And they've got a lot of 3-point weapons on this team. Obviously, Hunter Couture among them, but they've got a bunch of different guys, including Aluma and Mutz. They're post players that can make 3-pointers. That's going to be the big key. Is if they can make a lot of threes against that Syracuse zone, then that's going to be a good news for Virginia Tech.
So, would you say that the shooting is sustainable to continue, through this Syracuse game and beyond, or do you think this is just a hot, shooting streak?
It's been sustained so far. I mean, at some point they're going to cool off, but I mean, I said this is a 5 straight games. They've shot at least 50% from the field. So this is quite a role they're on now. And they're shooting 55% from the field during this 5-game stretch, and they've scored at least 74 points in each of these 5 games. So it's lasted longer than you would think already, and the lasting 5 straight games. It's just a question of at one point I think it's going to cool off. Is it going to happen Saturday, or will they make a bunch of threes again, and against the Syracuse zone and it keeps up, or will it end Saturday, or will they make a lot of threes and they keeps going, and then on Big Monday against Virginia, maybe that's the game where they cool off against the UVA defense. So we'll see there.
You look at the flip side of that. How do you expect this Vatek defense to fare against a Syracuse offense that shot the ball well and is hot as of late? What's the biggest thing that Syracuse offensively can exploit going into this matchup?
Well, I mean, I think that the key thing there is not obviously Tech's been playing good defense of late, but they've also been out rebounding their foes in 4 of the last 5 games. So I think that that it'll be key for Tech for Tech and Syracuse both on the boards. If Tech can keep up the success on rebounding, then obviously that means that Syracuse will not be getting on second chance points. And that will not on the flip side, of course, if the rebounding does not keep up like it has been for Tech, that means that if Syracuse can maybe miss the first shot, but if they're able to get those second chance points because Tech can't get the defensive rebound. Last game against Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh had 1 offensive rebound, and that was on a out of bounds team rebound. So that shows you how little second chance points Pittsburgh was getting. If no player was credited with an offensive rebound. So, I mean, obviously, if that keeps up against Syracuse, then Syracuse is not going to be able to get second chance points, and that's going to be good news for Tech. But obviously, if Syracuse can win the battle on the boards, that'll turn into some second chance points, presumably.
I think it'll be tough for Syracuse to win the battle on the boards with the news today that starting center Jesse Edwards is going to be out for the season after fracturing his wrist. But I want to go back to what you said a little bit earlier about Virginia. They got UVA coming to town on Big Monday. Do you think there's any look ahead potential of this game on Saturday? The Hokies haven't played since Monday against Pittsburgh. They've had a full week of practice. Do you think they might be looking ahead to a battle with their in-state rival?
Oh, I wouldn't think so. I mean, this team is not, is still just 6 and 7 in the ACC. I mean, they lost to Boston College last month. I mean, they know they can't look past anybody. They know that they're just as capable of winning any game as losing any game. And they know they've been in a lot of close games, and that, that the margin for error is very slim. So, they're not good enough to be looking past anybody.
You zoom out, Mark, and sort of look at the conference as a whole this year. And yes, sure, some people are going to cue it up as a down year. How does sort of you see
it's been it's totally a down year. It's a horrible year for the ACC, starting with the non-conference. I mean, I wish people would stop asking these coaches on the ACC Zoom every week about, why are so few ACC teams ranked? Because the league's not good. That's why.
Well, there you have it. I mean, when you look at sort of that next cream of the crop after Duke, I think we'd all agree that it's Duke and then it's everybody else. Who are some teams that jump out after Duke? Does anybody, or is it really just the Blue Devils as far as you're concerned?
Well, obviously Notre Dame has been playing very well of late, but Notre Dame, they've lost to Duke recently. In the ACC this year, how you make your bones, because everyone spat up on themselves in the non-conference season except for Duke. And except for that one good win that Notre Dame had against Kentucky. Otherwise, everybody, outside of Duke and outside of that Notre Dame win over Kentucky, everyone blew their non-conference chances there. Your chance for non-conference marquee wins. And so therefore, Duke was the only one that came into the conference season, with a good resume, and therefore, that meant there weren't a lot of opportunities for marquee wins in the ACC. You basically had to, in order to get noticed and become relevant, you had to beat Duke, and then you had to keep it up, So Miami wanted Duke, but then Miami didn't keep it up. Florida State beat Duke at home, but then Florida State didn't keep it up. Virginia just beat Duke at Duke. Now we'll see if Virginia can keep it up. Like I said, Notre Dame has been playing very well of late, but Notre Dame hasn't. But Notre Dame lost the game to Duke. So therefore, that's why Notre Dame's not ranked, because Notre Dame doesn't have that attention grabbing win over Duke. Obviously Wake Forest has played surprisingly well this year. So you've got some teams that are going to be going to the NCAA tournament, but not a ton. It's only going to be a handful this year.
Yeah. So you mentioned Wake Forest, who's having a very good season. Syracuse split with them, and there's always North Carolina as well. I wouldn't say that anybody says this has been a good year. It's Hubert Davis's first.
North Carolina hasn't beat anybody this year. North Carolina. I'm not sure why people still think North Carolina's going to make the NCAA tournament. They don't have any good wins to point to. So like I said, it's going to be a pretty weak bubble if North Carolina gets in with the resume they've got right now.
If you had to guess, how many ACC teams are getting into the NCAA tournament?
Well, I would say probably right now you'd probably think 4, probably 5 at the most. Obviously right now you'd probably think obviously Duke and Notre Dame and Wake Forest, and then the question is who else is Miami, and then who else is just North Carolina sneak in as a 5th team? You would think, after Florida State beat Duke, you were thinking that Florida State was going to get in, but now obviously Florida State's been playing poorly there, so like I said, I think you're looking at 4 teams, 5 tops.
All right, Mark, circling back to this week's matchup, what do you sort of see as the biggest X factor? What's the thing you're going to key in on the most between Syracuse and Virginia Tech? And if we could trouble you for a potential prediction as well, how do you see it shaking out this weekend?
Well, obviously Tech's at home, so you would think that they were going to win the game. Obviously Syracuse, if they were at full strength, you'd see it as a toss-up game. But obviously, with even though Syracuse has won 4 straight, they've got injury situation now, as you guys know. So you'd have to think that Tech has the upper hand with as hot as they are and being at home, and Syracuse not being at full strength.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's Mark Berman of the Roanoke Times. Mark, really appreciate you coming on and telling us everything we need to know about this week's matchup between the Orange and the Hokies.
Well, as a Syracuse grad, I had to come on for you guys, of course.
Appreciate all the help, Mark. Have a good one.
Thanks, Mark.
Take care.